Okay, let's turn attention to other stories now. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, Consumer Price Index, that's a CPI report for March 2017, has indicated a further decline in the rate of inflation by 0.52 percentage points, lower from the rate recorded in February. That's 17.78% to 17.26%.
Now, this is the second consecutive month of a decline in the headline CPI on a year-on-year basis, representing the effects of stabilizing prices in already high food and non-food prices. Now, according to the NBS, factors responsible for accelerating the pace of the increase in the headline index include housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, education, food and alcoholic beverages, clothing and footwear, and transportation services.
Now, the report further reveals that the food index increased by 18.44% year-on-year in March. For March 2017, has indicated a further decline in the rate of inflation by 0.52 percentage points, lower from the rate recorded in February. That's 17.78% to 17.26%.
Now, this is the second consecutive month of a decline in the headline CPI on a year-on-year basis, representing the effects of stabilizing prices in already high food and non-food prices. Now, according to the NBS, factors responsible for accelerating the pace of the increase in the headline index include housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, education, food and alcoholic beverages, clothing and footwear, and transportation services.
Now, the report further reveals that the food index increased by 18.44% year-on-year in March, slightly lower than the rate in February. That's at 18.53%. Now, this was driven by increases in the prices of bread, cereals, meat, fish, potatoes, yams, and other tubers, and wine, while the slowest increase in food prices year-on-year were recorded by soft drinks, fruits, coffee, tea, and cocoa. Now, that's your background right there. We're expecting, of course, to have our guest to discuss this.
Exactly. Our guest will join us. Our guest will join us soon. Now, the issue of the economic recovery is something that the federal government has said that in 2017, certainly in the first quarter, they were looking forward to Nigeria getting out of recession. One way or the other, we see some stability now, but the signs of recession are still there.
The real question is, what are the things we're doing right now that is, bringing about this lower inflation rate? Is it sustainable? How much of the CBN's intervention is affecting this inflation rate that we have? And so many other questions.
And our foreign reserve is increasing, so I guess
it is increasing.
Some
things
of these
really are looking good.
Exactly. Now we're joined now by the Statistician General of the National Bureau of Statistics, Dr. Yemi Kale. He is in our Abuja studio. Good morning, Dr. Kale. It's good to have you join us right now. Nigerians, when they hear the statistics, things improving, they seem to be a little happy, but some people are still very skeptical. Can you give us the breakdown? What is Nigeria doing right now that is bringing some improvement different from what it used to be before?
Well, there are different ways to look at this. A lot of things have been, interventions have been introduced, and it depends again on the statistics you are looking at. If you are looking at inflation, to start with is a general rise in price. So when we say inflation has slowed down, we're not saying that prices went down, we're just saying that the increase in inflation is moving slower. And at the end of the day, inflation is about demand and supply. So if the supply of goods and services in the market increases more than demand, then sellers will be competing among themselves, and they might pull their prices slightly down to compete with others. And if there's an increase in demand or a shortfall in supply, then you'll find that that's the way the prices move around in the markets in terms of inflation. So again, it depends on which statistics in particular you're looking at. It's very difficult to give a general idea of what is responsible for the improvement in general statistics. You have to tell me which statistics you're looking at, then I can give some suggestions as to what might be causing the improvement. But yes, there's a general improvement in various types of data
Yeah, Dr. Kali, we're talking about the inflation rate now, specifically. We're narrowing it down to inflation rate.
Okay, well, there's something that we call base effects, and base effects is you are comparing the previous year with the current year. If you look at the inflation results, you'll find that the month-on-month inflation is increasing slightly, which means there's still a bit of price pressure in the market. But if you look at the year-on-year inflation, which is what is typically used to gauge inflation, you find that it's been moderating. Now, this is a combination of price increases slowing down, as well as what I call base effects. Now, if last year, because the economy was under a lot of pressure, prices shot up significantly, and that pressure is no longer in the market, you would compare the rise last year to the rise this year, and because that pressure is not there, the rise would moderate slower, and that's what we call base effects. So it's a combination of these base effects, as well as the fact that many of the serious pressures that we had in 2016 are no longer in 2017. For example, the increase in the price of petrol, for example. Then it moved from, I think it was about 90 or thereabout to 143. Now, when you are comparing it in 2017, you'll be comparing 143 to 143. So the price effect will be 0, as opposed to 90 to 143. So you have these kinds of base effects that tend to smoothen out price rises going forward.
All right, it's good that you can, or you could actually bring it to the layman's understanding. Now, some experts really say that it's really not about inflation, whether it is high or low, but purchasing power. You want to speak to this for us, and are we to say then that it is uhuru yet for the Nigerian economy?
Oh, no. In any economy, double-digit inflation is not a good thing. Economically speaking, some level of inflation is good for the economy, but there's a maximum inflation level beyond which it becomes a serious problem. For example, if your inflation rate is higher than your savings rate, it means your things are becoming more expensive for you. Now, if your average inflation is 18% or 17%, and you are getting 7, 6, 8%, for your savings account, then you're going to have a problem, because it means every year the value of your savings account is becoming less useful. So double-digit inflation, even if it's been slowing down, is not something that anybody is going to be comfortable with. It means prices are still extremely high. All we are saying is that it is beginning to reduce, and which is a sign of progress. But no, we are not anywhere close to where we'll say that Nigerian consumers are in a good position. Absolutely not. But okay, the good news, like I said, is it's not getting worse anyway.
To what extent would you say that the Central Bank of Nigeria's interventions in the forex liquidity market has helped this inflation figures that we have now at 17.26%?
Well, a portion of goods and services consumed in Nigeria are imported. So obviously, if the foreign exchange, the exchange rate is moderating, it would help to pull down prices of goods and services. So the cost associated with the foreign exchange will be there. But you have to understand two things here. There is a delay. There's usually a lag effect. What I mean by that is, if my entire business is to import, import rice, for example, and I imported my last batch at, say, $400 400 naira to the dollar, and the price has gone to, say, 300, that's not going to immediately affect my price until the stock of rice I have that I bought for 400 has actually finished, and I go back into the market. So you will have those kinds of lags, whereby it would only start to impact significantly on prices when I'm going back to import those goods again at a lower exchange rate. But as long as those goods that I got at the higher exchange rate are still in stock, I will still price them based on the initial price I brought them into the country.
All right, now with this consistent decline in the inflation rate, at what point can we say that if it continues this way, the trend continues, at what point will Nigeria be officially out of recession if this trend continues?
Well, recession is a very technical term. I don't think it is based on inflation rate anyway. It is based on positive growth. So it's when we return to positive growth that we can say that we're out of recession. But there are usually a lot of signals that we are going out of recession, one of which is the inflation rate starts to slow down. But at the end of the day, it is positive growth. When goods and services are purchased year on year in a positive way, that's when we would say we're out of recession.
So do we expect to see further improvement then? What are the risks that you foresee if the tide changes?
Well, the risks, again, are the same risks that we faced in 2016. Let's put it this way. Our gross domestic product is 80% consumption expenditure, household consumption expenditure. So anything that puts pressure, further pressure on the consumer's ability to spend would be a risk. Last year we had increases in power prices, we had increases in PMS, we had increases in prices, a lot of different different things and so on. So in 2017, what would prevent this from happening is to ensure that nothing puts further pressure on the ability of household, the man on the street, to purchase goods and services. As long as the rise in goods and services continues to go down, it will become easier for the household to spend, and as long as the household continues spending, businesses will continue producing more, and as long as they are producing more, they will start hiring more people. And as long as they can hire more people, they will start paying more taxes and so on. And this way, the economy starts to come out of a slump and return to positive growth. So the risk is ensure that you don't put too much pressure, any new pressures on the consumer, on the man on the street. And if that is done, then this positive momentum will be sustained.
All right. Now, besides the CBN monetary interventions, are there some physical interventions by the government directly that we can measure to why the inflation rate is declining?
Yes, the immediate one, as far as there are two types of causes of inflation. There's cost push and there's demand pull. Now, cost push basically says there's something that is increasing the cost of production of producers, and because of that, they have to pass on the cost, if they can, to the consumer. And there's also demand pull. Demand pull is more of you and I having too much money to spend in the economy. I think in the last 1 year, I don't think anybody really expects that the cost of inflation was demand pull. So it was a case of cost of production by producers rising. And this included forex costs, it included interest payments to banks, it included costs like increase in alternative energy. In other words, because power was poor, I have to put on my generator and run my generator. At the same time, the cost of diesel was rising. These are the kind of things that increase the cost to the producer. Now, I think in various ways, government has intervened using both fiscal and monetary tools to try and alleviate some of these pressures as far as producers are concerned. At the same time, also put money in the hands of consumers. You remember that most of 2016, a lot of federal and state government workers did not get salaries for many, many months. If they don't have salaries, they cannot spend in the economy. So releasing funds, releasing their salaries and getting money into their hands, reducing or moderating taxes, trying to, there was also a committee set up to check what could be done regarding the increase in the price of agricultural commodities. These kinds of interventions help to flood the market with goods and services. And when you flood the market with goods and services, you tend to pull down the prices of those goods and services. And I think some of these measures may have positively impacted on why prices have gone down year on year. But like I said, it's largely as a result of these base effects I explained earlier.
All right, let's hope that this positive outlook is sustained.
That's our hope.
Yes,
Dr. Yemi Kale, the Statistician General of the National Bureau of Statistics, thank you for talking to us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We will go on a break now, and then at top of the hour will be time for us to go for the news update again. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.